Hey, for part 2 of our segment on the Cole Porter Festival, we have a special guest today. His name is Ward Roberts. He is also a family member, distant relative of Cole Porter, and the sister of Kati. So Kati Roberts, who was on the podcast, the main podcast. He is one half of the Hoosier Hysterics Podcast, which is a podcast about Indiana basketball, which a lot of you guys, if you know me, you know I love Indiana basketball, and I'm very excited to have him on. We had to do it via Zoom because he's in California, but he will be here for the Cole Porter Festival, so please stay tuned for this special edition of the Kokomo Press Podcast.
Warning! This video contains adult content not suitable for children.
About the Cole Porter Festival and your connection to it and everything that's happening. I'm from Kokomo. We do the Kokomo Press. It's like a satire comedy page, but we also do a lot of like creative artist spotlight and stuff. So we get a lot of that going on. And then I got reached out to about doing this, and I said, "What's the Cole Porter Festival? I'm from Kokomo. We don't, we have Haynes Apperson. That's our guy. He's our guy. Haynes Apperson. Those are our guys." So I was like, "What's Cole Porter?" And then I go to look him up, and he's written some great music that I'm like, I've listened to all these songs and didn't even know the man behind it. And he lived down the road, like, a couple of miles. So tell me a little bit about Cole Porter and, what he means to you and your family and everything.
Well, growing up in Peru, Indiana, Cole Porter, you drive into town, hometown of Cole Porter. Certainly in my family, there's a reverence. It's understood. I remember the post office put out a Cole Porter stamp when I was a kid, and that was a big deal. There's ceremony at the high school. I still have a T-shirt of the Cole Porter stamp with his face on it. This is a different T-shirt I made myself a few years ago just for fun. But you kind of take it for granted. You don't really appreciate it because it's all around you growing up, and you're singing his songs in show choir. But then I go to IU, I move to California, and, walking around at the famous outdoor mall, the Grove, always playing like Frank Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald. Yeah. And I'm clocking it. I'm like, every time I'm here, I'm listening to a Cole Porter song.
Absolutely.
I'm watching movies or TV shows from 30 years ago, 50 years ago, from today, and they got a Cole Porter song going on in the background. So sort of the further away I got from it, and the more I came to appreciate, just how difficult the entertainment industry is, music, film, television, Broadway, and that he basically conquered all of those with his music in his own time, and he's still owning them today, like a century after he was just getting started. So just with more time passing, and being away from, he's the prodigal son, he's who everybody just adores in this one small Indiana town, and you're like, well, no, he's still revered from Broadway to Hollywood to Paris to this very day. You're like, okay, this guy did pretty well.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because like I had a similar background. I was in the Navy for a minute, so I left Indiana, and when you leave your hometown, you're like, finally, I'm out of that place. I don't have to. But then you get there and you're surrounded by all these people from different states. So you start to get almost this like, no, Indiana's the best. Like you start to have, like you said, the reverence for where you were from before. And, it's very similar. Like you grew up around Cole Porter. I literally went through my iTunes. Was like, I want to look up a couple of songs. But I already had a Cole Porter song with him singing Anything Goes in my phone and didn't even realize that his name was on it because I had played a video game called Fallout 4. And they had a lot of older timey songs in there, and his song Anything Goes in there. And I always loved that song. I remember sending it to my buddy, one of the guys I did the Kokomo Press with, Brian. I sent it to him, and he goes, "Man, he's got bars." That's what he said. He's more of a hip hop fan, but when he's da 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 da, it's almost like there's a hip hop feel to it, and it's so funny to people. Like I've listened to songs, like popular songs, where I'm like, I didn't know Night and Day. I Get a Kick Out of You. You know what I mean? Those are classics. They're iconic songs that, you know, Frank has done, and you, like you said, Ella Fitzgerald, and then you've got all the way to like modern day, like Michael Bublé will kill a couple of those songs. So they're everlasting songs, and he did all this, you know, started it young in a small town in Indiana, and then, you know, there's a war in between all this that he's got to deal with. And then on top of all that, you know, afterwards, just the Great Depression, the war, all this going on. So like, and to end up being as prolific as he is and still like long lasting is such a big deal, you know, from a small Indiana guy, you know, small town Indiana guy, you know, that's amazing.
Well, and prolific is a great word for it, because he wrote songs at Yale that are still sung there today, fight songs of Yale. But he went and he had one Broadway musical kind of come out shortly after he got out of college. It was a flop. Yeah. So he went to Paris in post World War I Paris and became kind of a part of, you know, all the expat scene over there with Gertrude Stein and Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald and that whole thing. But he just was writing and writing and writing, and really he was doing that, meeting his wife Linda, just sort of gallivanting about Europe with royals and celebrities and artists. He'd be at the Lido in Venice, and it wasn't until he was in his late 30s that one of these people who came over from America and partied with him was Irving Berlin. Yeah. And Irving Berlin was like, Cole, like you're brilliant. We gotta get you back to New York. So finally, Irving Berlin had heard about this musical being created about Paris, and he was like, I got your guy. And so I think he was 39 when he finally came back to New York, and he'd been writing basically his whole life. He was writing his first songs in Peru when he was like 6 years old. But nobody besides, you know, he had like kind of a ballet classical thing happen in Paris, but very few public exhibitions of his work until he comes back. And in 1929, I think, is when Paris came out on Broadway. And so he might have been a little younger than 39, but the hits really started to roll, and he became Cole Porter in his 40s. But he'd been preparing for it his whole life. So then he was ready to spend the next, 20-25 years just crushing it.
And they always, like, I know when I watched the PBS documentary, which is great. So anybody who wants to learn more about Cole Porter, I would suggest going. They have it on YouTube. I know it's embedded on the website for the Cole Porter Festival, I think I was told. Check it out. It's a great documentary. You learn a lot. You see like how engulfed in not in the whole culture. He wasn't just a guy who did his own thing and then got recognized later on. Like that's Scott Fitzgerald, like Pablo Picasso. Like these are the people that he was brushing shoulders with. And you said he kind of got more started doing more as he got older in life, as he got But a lot of that had to do with the stuff he was writing. He had to live that life in order to write it and bring that to people. There was a decadence to it. There was like a sophistication. There was this, the Riviera is, thrown around a lot in the documentary. He's introducing people into the Riviera and he's learning things. And it's great to like have somebody that's from right over there. And I'm looking at this festival, and I'm going to bring it up. I know I'm doing a little bit more later in the main podcast. I wanted to get you on here because I know you're an expert and you're a family and you're close family and everything. But we have this, it's hard to see on here. I don't know if people can see it. I got the festival here, and I know you have a little bit of it on there. But a lot of this stuff is great. I mean, there's bus tours, there's songwriting workshops. It's very creative. It's not just a festival. It's honoring him, but it's honoring him in a way where, let's get people into this stuff. Let's have the Roaring 20s party. Let's let's come out here and have they have a song booth, music at the museum. Like it's very sophisticated. And I think it's something he would enjoy, knowing that you guys are still doing this great thing in his honor, in his name, about his music, about who he is as a person, but you're also keeping that sophisticated touch to it. I like that.
Yeah. And it's something where I think you kind of nailed it, that he would like it too. Yeah. And he had impeccable taste. He had, by all accounts, he was a very kind, very generous, very passionate person. but he liked the best.
Yeah.
He was a snob in that way, and he just sort of admitted, he's like, what's wrong with liking the very best?
Yeah.
Because he grew up well-to-do. Like the story goes, he grew up wealthy, he married wealthier, and then he became unbelievably successful as a songwriter.
Yeah.
So despite there being some real difficulties in his personal life, you know, whether it be like, you know, he's a gay man living in a straight world,
Yeah.
or the horrible accident when he just had his legs crushed. Like he went through some real hardship and tragedy, but that didn't involve finances.
Yeah.
And so he was able to have the best food, the best linens, and more importantly to me, just to have this incredible taste in art, in music, in what was cool in the most timeless sense of the word. So he's able to put that into his music. And there's this idea of like, why do we like certain movies or certain movie stars? And it's sort of this wish fulfillment. It's this aspirational thing. I think especially in Americans, we all sort of have this aspiration to something great. And he accomplished that. Like he did that. He lived that life. And as you said, he wrote about it. So especially in the Depression era, when everybody's just like getting in line to just get some bread, there's a real escapism, a real fantasy, and ultimately just touching back in with that constant American dream of wanting this incredibly fabulous life.
Absolutely. And honestly, the more I learn about Cole, the more I feel like he was the first, he's the first hip hop star, baby. Like he's wearing the fur, he's singing Versace. He's doing that. And it's a lot of people joke about modern hip hop being all about like decadence. And it's like, yeah, we go through phases. People want to learn about the things that they don't experience. As a guy, like I joined the Navy young, I moved over, and the first place I got sent to was Italy. Most of the people I know haven't even been to Europe. They don't know. So they need people like Cole Porter, people like people who have a worldly view to like tell them about it. So maybe they'll never experience it, but they maybe can have just like a glimmer of like, what is it like, going on a cruise around the world and then writing a whole entire, movie about it, or writing a Broadway musical about it. And he's so important in American history with a lot of these standards that it's weird to me how little I knew and how much I'm like way more excited about the man Cole Porter. And like you said, we're getting ready to hit Pride Month, and we don't get super political with Kokomo Press, but with Pride Month we care. We got a lot of LGBTQ members in the community, and as you said, as a gay man, kind of not closeted necessarily because he was in the right circumstances and he was married, right, and kind of had that. And that's kind of what you did back then. You got married, and it was when you watch the documentary, you learn a lot about that. So I still recommend doing that. But he comes out with this great, if you're the bottom, I'm the top, and I'm like, how did he know he was going to be this gay icon in the 20,000s, man? That's such a great song. I think that it should be on every parade during Pride Month. Throw that out there. It's the perfect song, and it's a really great song. It's written well.
Oh yeah, and that was the thing, right? Because to your point, in New York to a certain degree, maybe more so in Hollywood, where it was definitely more liberal, and even in Europe, to what degree he could be who he was in his personal life, varied, but at the end of the day, publicly, you could not be out in the open. You just couldn't do it. So for him to be subversive like that and to get it in those lyrics, I don't think he was thinking, 100 years from now I'll be an icon. But I think he's saying, like, right now, I'm going to put this out there, and those who know, they're going to know, and that's how we're going to fight the good fight in the only way you could at that point in time in America.
Absolutely. And like I said, a part of that too, one of the lines I really love in one of his songs, Anything Go, I think it's Anything. I love that song in general. Ever since I heard that song, I've loved it. And like I said, I love the beat of it, the way he uses the there's a lot of, music from that area did that, but the way he used the lyrics, because he wrote not only the music but he wrote the lyrics. And a lot of people around that time didn't do both. So in general, he was just a special guy for that. But he has a line about Plymouth Rock, with the decadence and with, Plymouth Rock would land on us, now. And I was thinking back to it. I'm like, I wonder if that Malcolm X, Denzel Washington line, but we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. And I was like, man, maybe Cole Porter wrote that line, a few years before, and they're like, hey, this is a good one. This is a banger. Let's throw it on here.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love that line.
Well, I think that's a great point of where and how he could end up influencing American culture, popular culture. And one thing I did years ago was I was in LA and I realized that Patricia Morrison, who played Kiss Me Kate, the original Kiss Me Kate on Broadway, was still alive, lived a couple miles from my house, and was like 101 years old.
Yeah.
So I was like, I got to get over and talk to her on camera. We did, and we started talking to some other older legendary songwriters to start to kind of feel like, oh, what was his influence in the generation sort of after him?
Yeah.
And, that was very enlightening to the way that, because you look at it was him and the Gershwins and Irving Berlin are basically the grandfathers of American popular music. I mean, you could go back to, Camptown Races, Stephen Foster Wallace. I'm mixing him up with Stephen Foster. Yeah, just Stephen Foster. But like really in terms of when you look at, all right, when Cole and the Gershwins and Irving Berlin's time was kind of done, Elvis showed up and the Beatles, and it kind of took off from there. But to your point of this still being somebody who's sort of referenced or used today, well, whether it's in a video game or I was just watching Ozark. I was just watching the end of Ozark, and like there's some in there. And so when you're dealing with the Great American Songbook and particularly Cole's songs, it's got these two natures of being timeless and versatile. And I love how you talk about it being even applicable to hip hop, because what really kept his music alive was the musicals themselves, the Broadway musicals, Anything Goes and Kiss Me Kate, are still performed today.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of his songs were with other musicals that were not so good. It was sort of pre-Rodgers and Hammerstein, and those musicals weren't that good to begin with, and they don't really exist today for the most part. But it was these jazz greats, because as rock and roll kind of came in and took over, it was like Miles Davis and Chet Baker, and of course Frank and Ella and Nat King Cole. They'd been doing Cole already, in the 40s and stuff like that. But the way it kind of outlived them even was just like all these jazz guys being like, yes, lyrically second to none, but also like the melody of it, the syncopation of it, it's just also rich that they've been exploring it ever since. But I think, there's a separate project I'm doing. It's called Experiment, the Cole Porter Project. And a lot of it is about this test of like right now in 2022, I want to find a bunch of musicians from different genres, including hip hop, and be like, do a Cole Porter song right now and make it relevant to today and your audience today. Don't make it sound like what Frank did back then.
Yeah.
And last year at the Cole Porter Fest, they had a Cole Porter cover contest, which they're doing again this year. And I think the winning band was like bluegrass and did Cole Porter in like a bluegrass style. I didn't get to be there. I can't wait to see it this year. So I think it's just this, while he'll still always live in the Michael Bublé kind of realm, Harry Connick Jr., Lady Gaga, and Tony Bennett just won some more Grammys because they did a whole Cole Porter album. But that's in the more traditional sense. And I think what really excites me, and I'm excited about coming back to the festival for, is to see, okay, well, how are people interpreting him today in their own style?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's good with music, and YouTube in general is one of those the big avenues where you see a lot of people will do covers of different different songs. And I think Cole Porter is due for it, especially with the type of rhythms, the syncopation. You brought that up. It's a big deal. And just the intricacies of what he did. Nowadays, you can hear them in any style of music. I mean, I'm thinking even like a metal version of the song would be cool. Like as far as musically using like a progressive version of it. And a lot of metal music is like jazz influenced anyway. I'm personally in a band called Grey Garden, and we do like a post-hardcore thing. And I was listening to some of the songs. I'm like, we might have to do a Cole Porter song soon. That would be really nice.
Get in that cover contest.
We got to get it. I saw that. I was like, we got to do it. And I'm a vocalist, so I'm all for it, man. And my buddy and I, we like our band name is Grey Garden. It's the name of the band is based off of a settlement in Fallout 4, which is where I heard Anything Goes. So it's like kind of all weirdly connected in some way.
Synchronicity. Yeah, I mean, it's like I brought this up the other day. Like, how cool would it be to hear Metallica do a Cole Porter song?
Yeah.
Or Run the Jewels. Like Run the Jewels,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
really into right now. Have them do Anything Goes. It'd be amazing.
Let's see Jermaine Cole. Let's see J. Cole do a Cole Porter song. We'll just call J. Cole Porter, and we'll just have the whole
I
thing,
love that.
have it go. I think and I could hear the rhythm of it. Like I said, there's a very timeless feel to it that even today, a lot of modern hip hop, I think, could take a lot from the type of music he does, and the fact that like he was like, I go back to the Decadent, like, he had this air of like, like nowadays a lot of hip hop artists are like rappers, they're Versace, and Gucci and Fendi, and they're throwing out all these. It's very similar to the type of guy, but he's just buttoning up, putting that suit on, looking great. I'm looking right now at the historic Peru, Indiana, June 9th through 12th, 2022. That's the Cole Porter Festival, 30th annual. I'm so excited. I'm excited to go out there. I was showing my fiance, I was like, look at this, look at all they have going on. I was like, we can even bring the kiddos out here and check out some of this stuff, some of the live music, see what's going on. There's a lot of great festivals in Indiana. You need everybody out there, put the Cole Porter Festival on your list to go to, because it's great. And he's from here, he's right from over there. Like, I know I was out of town for a while in the military, and I come back and I'm like, how did I not know about this extraordinary person that lived right over here? But I know about Haynes and Apperson, who built some cars here.
Yeah. There's a good friend of mine. He's a judge in Indy now, but he's from Kokomo. His name's Travis Sandifer.
Yeah.
And we were talking. He grew up in Kokomo. I grew up in Peru. And this was sort of, I was maybe just out of college. And he's a really cool guy, really interesting, smart guy, really excellent musician. And he was like, he's like, Peru, man. He goes, between what you guys have going on with the circus and what you have going on with Cole Porter, he's like, there's something really Wu-Tang about Peru. And I was like, that is one of the greatest compliments that have ever been paid to my hometown. And it really, like, it was another one of those early ones that made me kind of step back and be like, oh, this really cool guy from Kokomo just already had that perspective growing up, that like, because he knew more than I did, younger than I did, about what was cool, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And he'd already made that assessment, and that meant a lot to me. And before I forget, it's in Anything Goes, but as far as like a great hip-hop song, I think that, because you're making these great points about how Cole's lyrics were hip-hop before hip-hop existed, Brush Up Your Shakespeare is all about having a vocabulary to impress the ladies. Like, you got to have vocab, like Jurassic 5 would love that song.
Yeah.
And so I do feel like it's one of those, even with the 1990 album Red Hot and Blue, which was one of the first big AIDS benefits albums that came out, and it was all Cole Porter songs, and it was David Byrne and Tom Waits and Sinead O'Connor and like all the coolest artists who were really, in their prime in the late 80s into 1990. And there wasn't a great hip hop example there yet. Hip hop was still relatively young, but that's a great album for people to check out, to be like, oh, all these songs really sound like 1990, but they're Cole Porter songs, and they really worked then, and they still work now. And so that's what we're trying to get going with, this album documentary I'm working on. And I do hope that the Cole Porter Fest, we can tie both the project I'm doing in with the festival next year.
Yeah, that'd be great.
To be another part of, now that my sister Cotty and Christian, they have taken over as producers this year, and just kind of looking at what they're building on of really what's been 30 years of this festival building. But I think they're there now to take all those things you mentioned, like the different, you're going to learn about Cole the Man, who's a really interesting guy. You're going to learn about the art of songwriting through the lens of one of the great songwriters of all time. You're going to spend time with Jason Gornto as Mr. Porter. It's such a variety of things about the man and the music available over these few days. There is literally something for everybody, and including a bunch of great live music. A lot of it will be Cole Porter songs. Like, I've been working my butt off because I'm not a great musician to just be able to play Cole Porter songs for my set, and it'll be unlike anything you've heard, but hopefully in an entertaining way. But that there's other people going to be playing other songs that are not Cole Porter songs, and so like I think Cole would love that too. It's like it's a celebration of not just him and his life and his songs, but of music. It's a celebration of music and art.
Yeah, and that's what I think I really enjoy about this festival compared to nothing against the Haynes Apperson Festival, but they do a car show, and it's very there's just not that artistic element. They do some music, but it feels way more like just a fair than and like I said, nothing against Haynes Apperson, I love it, but I would really like to go to a festival where you feel like there's something extra, and that's what it feels like with the Cole Porter Festival. There's this elegance to it, there's this sophistication to it, and I really hope people from Kokomo, when they see this, that it makes them want to show up, because honestly, put on a zoot suit, go out there, have a great time, feel like you're in the 20s, the roaring 20s, feel like you're having a great time, like listening to this great music. And you said you're performing there? That's good.
I will. Yeah. Let me look at the schedule. I'm on Friday, June 10th. I think it's going to be at like noon or 1 o'clock. I'm after my dad's band, the Swamp Water Stompers, everybody's just got to hear them. They're a classic New Orleans Dixieland jazz band. They're amazing. So I'm on after them, which is like, I expect the crowd to thin out significantly for my portion. But at least I've got a good crowd to start with because of them. But it's just the bands I do know, Eel River and stuff like that. It's so many great local folks coming together. Some I don't know, so I'm gonna stick around to listen to them. And like you were saying, the Roaring 20s party should be super fun.
Yeah.
And that for especially in Kokomo, there's so many people in Kokomo compared to Peru. It's like a 20-minute drive, and almost all of this stuff. I don't know if there's a couple things like you do the bus tour, so obviously you're going away from downtown there, but almost everything else is within like 3 blocks. It's all going to be within walking distance. There's going to be food. There's going to be drinks. It's just a great way to pass a day or a weekend, if you like.
Yeah, and it's the weekend right after the Strawberry Festival in town, so I don't think anybody has any good excuses. You go enjoy the Strawberry Festival on Friday, Saturday time, and then come out to the Cole Porter Festival, 30th annual. That's June 9th through 12th, 2022. That's this year, obviously. But June 9th through 12th is really, it's the full 3-day weekend, right? So is it Friday? Oh, no, Friday is the 10th. So it'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, there might be kickoff stuff on Thursday, but I think it really gets going on Friday the 10th. That's if unless there might be something I'm not seeing on the schedule on the 9th.
I was going to say June 9th through 12th, but I'm not seeing anything. Oh, there's Thursday, June, Plates of Peru, live music and local eatery. So I think they're starting stuff then. Maybe that's what it is.
There you go.
So they're doing. It sounds like a kickoff, which they do for Haynes as well on Thursday. They do something small to get everything going, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So
do they still have a tennis tournament for Haynes Apperson?
I hope so. I mean, everything's down there now. It might as well. It's right there. I mean, now they have the Mummies every year, and they've got different bands every year.
Yeah, I remember getting my butt kicked a couple times in the Haynes Apperson tennis tournament. Yeah, that's my memories of that.
I didn't play tennis growing up, but my ex-wife did, and she's like 6'2", and I'm only 5'7", so I'm a short guy. And so I went and played her dad for the first time in tennis, and I just got mollywopped because he's like 6'6", so he's just like just hucking him over my head. I'm like, yeah, I'm learning how to get beat really well.
Good life lesson.
Yeah, it was quick. I feel like he was taking it out on me. Why'd you marry my daughter? Coming at me.
I have to ask. I see the artwork in the background. I came to visit because you see me like a UFO. That's like never because I made you
use self-control.
Is that a lyric from something?
Yeah, it's Frank Ocean, actually. Frank Ocean is one of my favorite artists of all time, and he's got this song called Self-Control, which is the name of that song. And I love that song so much. And that line, somebody made this on Etsy, and I saw it, and I was like, I like this as a backdrop for the podcast. It'll probably get retired soon. We've had it up for a year. It'll probably get retired soon. But I like the aesthetic of it, and it's white, so it gives like a nice clean vibe to it. But yeah, with those are his lyrics from that song, and I think Frank Ocean, another very prominent gay artist who's who does everything, produces everything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities between him and Cole, as far as like having, the ability to do everything, not just the music, but the lyrics, and then make songs that are just so artistic and just have these lyrics that you're like, what? How are you able to do that and put this with the, oh my God, this guy's on another level. So another modern artist that I honestly, when I hear about Cole Porter and I learn more about him, they're very, very similar as far as like their abilities, like having that very specific ability. And there's a hip hop vibe, like I said, they both kind of have a little bit of that vibe.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great point. And I do think, to me, there's so few people who know who Cole Porter is anymore. And I mean, and a lot of them do know the songs. Even younger generations have been around, whether it's a video game or a TV show or going to the mall. It's like, well, you don't know it, but you do know some of his songs because you live in America. You've been exposed to his music. So to me, it does mean a lot to me that, one, people learn about the man himself, because I think he was just a really special individual, and that means a lot. But I also know that the way you're really going to have new generations of Cole Porter fans is through the music.
Yes.
Like you pull them in with the music, you get them poking around on Spotify, finding different Cole Porter songs done by different people in different decades. Well, then you'll get them to learn, probably in time, more about the man and how special he was.
Yes.
But it's through the music that he is eternal, and he's going to outlast you and I because of those songs. Those songs are going to be around.
It's the art of it, and how much it meant, and how many people. Like I said, the weirdest thing isn't just looking up Cole Porter and finding his music and being like, I've heard of this. The weird thing is going through your iTunes now and realizing how many Cole Porter songs you have, and you didn't even realize it this whole time. And like I said, for people in Kokomo, for people in Indiana, he's right over here. He was right from over here. He's from here, and I think in the Midwest in general and in Indiana, we like our own people. We like when people from where we are from make it big and do something great. And so I think Cole Porter is one of those. We gotta get him back in the zeitgeist. Let's talk about him. Let's get some more information about him. Let's learn more. Let's get people to understand that night and day. I get a kick out of you. These are songs we've all heard growing up. We're like, oh yeah, I love that Frank Sinatra song. And it's like, that's a Cole Porter song. Frank
Yes.
Sinatra singing it, baby. And he's
Yes.
one of the greatest singers and crooners of all time. But at the end of the day, that's a Cole Porter song, and we got to know that. Everybody has to know that.
Well, and with I very much feel the same way as you, this pride in the Hoosiers, the great Hoosiers of all time. And, whether you're talking about musically, the Jacksons, Michael Jackson, the Jackson family. You're talking about Axl Rose. You're talking about John Mellencamp. You want to talk about, outside of that, you've got David Letterman. You've got Kurt Vonnegut. You've got some really incredible all-time greats in their specific genres that I'm always shouting that to the mountaintop. James Dean, obviously one of these icons who will live forever because of just really a genius, like an artistic.
Mark Cuban, another person who's a
Mark Cuban. Now
huge
he's not from Indiana originally, but we've adopted him.
And
so
he's also a big part of the culture of Bloomington now, so it's a big deal.
Yeah. Anybody like Sage Steele, Jane Pauley, I think she's from Indianapolis. Hoagie Carmichael obviously is another great. What's that? Mike Epps.
Yeah.
Mike Epps.
No, we've got some great Hoosiers or Hoosier adjacent people that have done some great things. Cole Porter needs to be on that list, and people need to know who he is. We don't have very much time left, Ward. I appreciate Ward Roberts. Check him out. Hoosier Hysterics. Hoosier Hysteria.
Hoosier Hysterics, yeah. Hoosier Hysterics Podcast. If you're a hardcore Indiana basketball fan, that's the podcast for you.
To me, I enjoyed listening to Jordy Holes on there, and I was like, these guys are killing it, getting Jordy Holes on here, and you guys are about to have Trace Jackson.
Trace Jackson Davis. That's when is this going to air? When will this come out?
Tomorrow, I think, or Tuesday. Either tomorrow or Tuesday. So.
Okay, so hopefully we'll be dropping a new episode with Trace Jackson Davis. But we also just had Coach Woodson on a couple weeks ago. If you want to kind of get an update on that.
I appreciate you coming on, Ward. This is great, man. I appreciate everything. I think we're running out of time. I don't know how all this works, so I'm still kind of new at this. But I appreciate
you're doing great.
And thank you for taking time out to come talk to us.
Appreciate it very much, Jordan. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to seeing you at the Cole Porter Festival.
I'll
next
be there.
week.
I'll be there. I'm gonna come watch you.
Awesome, awesome, man. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Kokomo Press Podcast. We really appreciate you. Check us out on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram, on all the social medias you can find us on. Or, if you want to, listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or, of course, our full video podcast is located on YouTube, the Kokomo Press. Don't forget about us. We won't forget about you. We love you. 2 kisses.